I'm a student of paleontology, and I'm claiming student status here today. So I'll probably mispronounce some names, and I'll terminology, and give you a wild hypothesis or two. So she covered a number of things that I have written down here. But I used to write a humor column. It was called Wandering and Wondering. And today this talk will be kind of like that, wandering. I'll be wandering and you'll be wondering. And anyway, for instance, the local Bloyd geological formation was named after Eli Bloyd, who was one of the earliest settlers in West Fork. And he moved his family to West Fork in 1828. And they brought all of their worldly possessions in a two-wheel cart and was pulled by oxen. And upon arrival, their nearest neighbor lived 7 miles away. And it was Colonel Billington, I think it was. And the nearest store was in Missouri. Eli died at 92 and is buried in the West Fork Cemetery. He was one of the founders of this Christian church, the building that we're in right now. This is Eli Bloyd. And anyway, the first settler in West Fork. And so that's a little bit of history for you, but he has a formation named after him in geology around here with a string of fossils as long as your arm. And so the fossils that you're seeing here today are just the ones that I've been able to find and pick up, but there's so many fossils out there. There's a jillion of them if you start looking in the books and realize that just how many there are. Anyway, fossil hunting around West Fork, you can find fossils anywhere around here. You can find them in rock walls, you can find them in fields, you can find them anytime you dig a hole. In fact, my friend Fred Lawley tells me I have a PhD, a post-hole digger degree. And anyway, so from the West Fork of the White River, from the Brentwood rest stop all the way down to Dye Creek Bridge, and then all the way down to the Greenland Bridge, during the summer months, the river gets really shallow. And it's a great fossil hunting area, and I have taken my mountain bike before from Dye Creek Bridge down to Greenland and found wonderful fossils and had big pieces of lepidodendron and different things, and I leave them in a pile because I didn't have any way to carry them on my bike. And of course, I never went back and got them, and they all washed away, and that's something that happens kind of frequently. But anyway, you can find fossils at West Fork yard sales and people's yards when you go to yard sales and stuff. And anyway, I was hoping Connie Hoskins would be here today, but I went to a yard sale, and it was one of the best yard sales I've ever been to. And it's about a mile from here. And I bought a couple of fossils from this lady, and she found I was interested in fossils. And so she said, oh, there's a pile my late husband left over here by the creek. And so went over, and there was this big pile of rocks all covered with vines and leaves and weeds and growing out of it and that. And so I said, sure, I want them because I collect rocks and stuff. So I loaded them in the truck, and I had no idea what these things were. And so I got them home. And anyway, months later, I was reading a fossil book, and there was a picture in the fossil book, and it was one of those rocks out there that I had hauled home. And I'm looking at it, and I'm going, that's the same rock. And I went out and got it and looked at the rock, looked at the picture, and it was a stromatolite. And stromatolites are the oldest living fossil on Earth. And her husband, late husband, had gone and collected all of these stromatolites from all over the place, and they were thrown out there by the creek in a pile. And I don't know who did that, but anyway. So I got them and started researching them, and these are some of them. This is a Druzy quartz stromatolite. These rocks are not from around here. Okay, I got them here, and so that's why they're here, because I'm telling you can find them at yard sales. But anyway, I found this at a yard sale. These are from Potosi, Missouri, and these were 105 billion years old. And when you look at it, you're going, stromatolite, that looks like quartz to me. Well, the state of Missouri did a geological study on the fluid transfer from the mountains around Potosi, Missouri, over stromatolithic beds below down along the river. And they found that these were actually stromatolites. And because there was a lot of argument online about these aren't stromatolites, and yes, they are. And anyway, so I found this Missouri study that somebody had put on there, and I was going, well, I read it. I was going, okay, they are stromatolites. And so anyway, that's something. But there's a number of those in these cases over here and out there on the table from Ron's collection. It's kind of the holy grail of fossil hunters because stromatolites go back 3.5 billion years. And these were cyanobacteria. These were mats that just laid over the top of other rocks and that, and then formed layers, and different, minerals and sands and stuff would get interlaced with them, and they would form these layers, and they were kind of curvy, and anyway, so they ended up dying off millions of years ago. And so you don't find stromatolites today except in a few places, over the Strelley Pool and Australia, and there's a patch of them off of Mexico, and then there's another patch in the Salt Lakes. The Great Salt Lake have microbiolites. And let's see, I've got these so scattered out, but a microbiolite's like that little pointed thing right over there in the front row. And those are in the Great Salt Lake right now, and the Great Salt Lake is drying up, and all these microbiolites, excuse me. I told you I was going to mispronounce stuff, but these are called microbiolites. Anyway, the Great Salt Lake right now, these are dying because the water's receding and they're drying up. And these are really old, fossils. But so yeah, I found all these stromatolites just in a pile by the side of a creek, and here in West Fork. The fossils around here are Pennsylvanian in age, and that was one of the great things about Master Naturalists, is that they took us in vans up to the Missouri border across the line, and we looked at the chert up there and the dolomite, and then we went over to the Frisco Hill there in Fayetteville, and if we got out of the van and walked down the railroad tracks, and it showed us where the Mississippian and the Pennsylvanian shales collided. And anyway, so that was an interesting geological thing. And so we also came down here to West Fork, and we saw where the Atoka sandstone sorts just south of West Fork here. And then we saw different geological features all over. We saw Archimedes limestone. We stopped by the side of the highway, and there's a patch of it there, in the ditch and stuff. Dr. Manger, pointed out to us. And so it was great. The Master Naturalists really, go all out to try to show you what your, subject is you're learning that day. So anyway, I thought it was great. Anyway, the Pennsylvanian age is what most of the fossils are in West Fork. And they're 223 to 229 million years old. And they're named after Pennsylvania. And in Pennsylvania, they had a lot of rock exposures that were younger than Mississippian. And so they named them Pennsylvania. And anyway, the Pennsylvanian Carboniferous period, they had cockroaches a foot long, dragonflies 2.5 feet long. It's when coal beds began. Masses of lycopods, lepidodendron, calamites, and all that formed huge masses of plants that rotted and formed our coal that we get today, and oil and that. And anyway, by the way, West Fork, I don't know if you know it or not, is a gas play. The Fayetteville Shale around West Fork, they ran gas lines and drilled a few wells here years ago, but the shale around here is a gas play. And so nobody's going to get rich off oil, I think, around here. But the Pennsylvanian age, reptiles first came, and the development of amniotic eggs, they eliminated the need for water to lay eggs in. So common marine fossils are coral, brachiopods, snails, plecopods, crinoids, trilobites, and also Archimedes and that. I've got a lot of these on the table here. And Angela was mentioning astrosomas and what made them, and arthropods. Arthropods are creatures like shrimp and trilobites at the time that they just have a chitinous exoskeleton. They don't have a vertebrae or that. But this is a astrosoma that I found, and on the back of it, there's still a piece of the worm trace going across the back of it. And the bad thing about it is I don't have slides. I just have rocks to show you. It's kind of hard to show you from a distance, but there's still a piece of the worm and the trail left going in through here on this astrosoma. Astrosomas are trace fossils. I'm kind of repeating what she said. It's rather than an animal or a plant, it's a long time range, a temporal time range from Precambrian to recent. They're found in sandstone and shale. Traces were made by marine worms, polychaetes moving through sediments. And they press the sediments against walls and then backfilled burrows. And a lot of times when you're out here and seeing rocks around West Fork, you'll just see little bumps and trails and humps on the rocks and stuff. Those are usually burrows and little trails made by arthropods and different annelid worms and that. Archimedes, like she said, was Pitkin limestone, and it's a fossil, looks like a corkscrew, and alive it stood on the seafloor, attached to the seafloor, and its fronds waved in the currents and collected food. And those are real common around West Fork. And anyway, people seem to really like them, and so I used to pick them up. And anyway, people loved them, and I've sent a bunch of them to Louisiana to my relatives and to different people. And anyway, they're not that common though, because I've looked at them before on eBay, and you never hardly see astrosomas on there. And one time I saw a slab of them on there, a small slab. It was $145, and I was going, gosh, these things are worth money. And anyway, so that was a surprise. Around here, there are ammonoids. They're marine animals with shells, partitioned into chambers with squid-like animal lived in the end chamber and used the rest for buoyancy. And we have mollusks, bivalves. We've got mollusk rocks here, and here's some more over here. Too far for you to see, but anyway, Ron Mann's a friend of mine, or right over here. His daughter was going to make me some slides, but it was too late. And so anyway, you have to look at these rocks from a distance. And anyway, see, bivalves are mollusks, fossil relatives of today's clams, oyster, mussels. Both halves of the shells match. And we have brachiopods. They're clam-like animals. They're attached to the seafloor by a flexible stalk, much different than mollusks, and they were present from the Ordovician to Pennsylvanian. And they wave tentacles through a hole to catch food particles in the current. And then we have crinoids, and she's covered. And they're some of the Earth's earliest marine animals. They have five-fold symmetry and have managed to survive with present as sea lilies, attached to the seafloor with a holdfast and waved tentacles to capture food. And I actually have a holdfast that you won't be able to see, but it's like a little circle with a little connector down in the end of it. And I think that's what that is. And where they attach to the seafloor. And so we have corals, and I can find a lot of corals around here. They look a lot like flowers, live in colonies attached to one another by their outer skeletal walls, and coral fossils are common in limestone, but also found in shale and sandstone. Conostichus, those are common around here. And these are ornate Conostichus, and it's a sea anemone burrow. And anyway, it probably went something like that. And the stiraceans she mentioned, you can see on this one. There's a number of those in the cases down here. Conostichus is a resting burrow and is common, trace fossil in the White River. So we'll look at some Pennsylvanian land plants, and the lycopods are the most common. So Lepidodendron is this diamond-shaped pattern, and you can see a big block of it down here. I had to get my tractor to get that one out of the creek because breaking my back trying to carry it. But anyway, some pieces I've seen and Woody Meringer's seen that are like 10 feet long of logs in the White River down here. But one of the things about not picking up fossils is they break to pieces if you don't pick them up. I've watched fossils through the years, ones I wanted to get that were too heavy to pick up, and I went back later and after big floods and rains and stuff, and they bashed, broken to pieces and that. So you'll find a bunch of broken pieces, so I don't mind picking them up, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it because they're just going to be destroyed anyway. So anyway, these are lepidodendron pieces, and they're known as scale trees, and they were club mosses. They have diamond-shaped leaf scars on the trunk that look like tire tracks, and they grow over 100 feet tall and make up a large percentage of our coal deposits. Okay, then we have calamites. These are some calamite pieces. It's like bamboo. And calamites are extinct ancestors of horsetail plants, and they grow up to 100 feet to 160 feet tall, and the section's like bamboo with ribs. And anyway, some pieces of calamite. You can see the sections there like bamboo on this piece. Now we have petrified wood. I think that piece is over here. This is kind of, must be in the other case. But anyway, there's a piece of petrified wood in that case right down here that I brought and didn't put it in the right spot. Petrified wood is fossilized wood formed when plant stems are buried in wet sediments and minerals replace the cell walls. And then we have annelid worms. We're going to move over from plants to this. They're segmented worms. They're called annelid worms. You can't see that from here, but it winds all around, and there's some good ones over in that other case in the library. And annelid worms are characterized by movable setae bristles and a body divided into segments by transverse rings. Trace fossils, or ichneofossils, is a fossil record of biological activity, but not the remains of the plant or animal itself. The study of trace fossils is called ichnology. It consists of the study of burrows, borings, footprints, feeding marks, and other remains of organic material left by an organism. Trace fossils reflect the behavior, not the biological identity of the maker. We have a lot of trace fossils and plant and animal fossils here in West Fork because the shale and siltstone erode faster than sandstone and limestone. Trace fossils, like astrosomas down there, let's see, I didn't put one up here, but I have some bioturbation here. This has some trace fossils in it. That's what this is. Anyway, trace fossils have a whole nomenclature for, each thing. Kubachina are resting places. Domachina is burrowing dwelling places. Predachia those are bite marks. Vortichinia, or animal has died in its trace burrow. Calichidia is resting places. And Cruziana is movement or feeding traces. And ichnotaxa, fossilized work of an organism. Of course, this is all going over your heads. You won't remember any of this. But anyway, Thasalonides are crustacean burrows. Diplonites, or parallel row of tracks produced by arthropods, and you have a piece of that over here. And Scolethos are the vertical burrows made by worms and crustaceans. And so this is a piece of bioturbation that is on the floor of the ocean. And this is where worms and different creatures moved around in the sediment. So we have also a whole lot of, in northwest Arkansas and around West Fork here, concretions. And concretions are basically just mineral, agglomerations, and they're masses of mineral matter. And concretions are usually oval or spherical and in shape, although irregular and different shapes do occur, and they're found worldwide. And this is a concretion, this head. I brought it to the Sam Noble Dinosaur Museum, and I brought it to Walt Manger and Selena Suarez, and that I find it an interesting piece because I've seen lots of concretions through the years here in the creeks and broken them open and looked at them and one thing or another, and I've never found one that looked like this, with a jaw that was the head symmetrical, the jaw line goes all the way around, and there's a line of teeth on the other side, which I'll show you here in a little bit. Anyway, that's a concretion over there. Against the post is a concretion. And anyway, we've got a lot of concretions around here. And so anyway, West Fork is special in a number of different ways. And anyway, if you look at this map, this was put out by the state of Arkansas back in 1985. And there was another one in 1965. I've got a copy of the first book, Tom Freeman, The Fossils of Arkansas. And if you'll notice this, you'll see that West Fork here is by itself, as far as fossil availability, how easy they are to find in that in this whole area from Missouri to Oklahoma all the way to Ouachitas, and that West Fork is the spot. And we have a lot of sedimentary rocks here going on. And anyway, so this is an unusual rock. This is a Guangadendron stem. And Shree Widener found this. We were walking down the road, and she picked this up, and we looked at it and didn't know what it was. And so it is the ancestor to Lepidodendron. And the way I found that out was I was looking at Google one day, and this came on. Somebody found one in China or something, and they had a picture of it on the internet. And so I'm looking at it, and I'm going, that's the same rock that Shree found out there in the road. And instead of Lepidodendron, the diamond plate shape, this has little slits all through it. And anyway, you have to look at it up close to really be able to see it. I'm sure you guys think I'm crazy showing you these. But anyway, this is Guangadendron, I think. And so Angela will have to look at this. And like I said, I'm the student, and she knows more than I do, so we will talk about this. And she's welcome to come up and give you her opinion on this stuff. And so anyway, Guangadendron. Anyway, then we have some other weird stuff here. This, I think, is a Paradoxides. And this, you can see it's a genus of very large trilobite that's found throughout the world during the Middle Cambrian. It had long, narrow, recurved spines, and one found in 1863 was 15 inches long. These are trilobites, but gigantic trilobites. And so it came out of the Middle Cambrian. And so with the setae there, I think that this is a poor, example, but I think it shows enough that it is, a good example of a Paradoxides. And anyway, then we have this. This is a Rusificus cruziana. And like I was telling you, the resting places and that, a cruziana is the traveling part of this rock here, where the organism traveled down. This rock was like, this is the bottom of the mud floor, and then this would be the top. And this is seeing it from below where this animal moved across. And so the end here would be called a Rusificus, where it burrowed at the end of its burrow, and the cruziana is where it moved. And so this is a great piece of seafloor from West Fork here. Oh yeah, also you can tell a trilobite and the age of the trilobites, and so that'll have to be looked at as far as it has uses in biostratigraphy. Specific scratch patterns are unique to specific time intervals, and traces reveal many aspects of the maker's behavior. And so that has a story to tell. We've gone through trilobites, and we have some trilobites up here. The largest ever found in Arkansas, in the Powell Dolomite in North Arkansas, measures 3 inches in length. This rolled trilobite that I have here, this has a centerpiece, and it's got the little striations here. This is a rolled trilobite. It's 3 inches wide. And then I think that the Rusificus cruziana over here is larger than any of the trilobites they found here in Arkansas. And so during the Pennsylvanian age, the trilobites were only about the size of your thumb. And they were from the genus Protedidae, and they were small trilobites, and they were the only family that survived in the Pennsylvanian was the Philippidae, because we had the Ordovician die-off, which killed 85% of all life on Earth, and then we had another die-off at the end of the Devonian. They killed off a bunch more of life on Earth. And so by the time we got to the Pennsylvanian, you had only these small trilobites left that were about the end of your thumb size. And so these would be much bigger, and so had to go farther back in time. I'm thinking that this stuff came out of the Cambrian. I'm thinking we could go farther back in time with this stuff, because this came from Middle Cambrian trilobites that size. And so this is something for Angela to come up and talk about, possibly. But you can make a major timeline change in the age of the geology of Northwest Arkansas from these fossils. And so I'm looking at a timeline change in the age of geology from Pennsylvanian possibly to Cambrian. There's one Cambrian spot in Arkansas, and it's the Collier Shale, and it's south of Mount Ida. And it was late Cambrian to early Ordovician, and it's previously the oldest stratigraphic unit with surface exposure in Arkansas. And I'm thinking that when I'm finding these fossils, this and this, that puts us in the same spot. And so Ordovician to Cambrian. And it could be a second window in the beginning of life on Earth. And so anyway, and it would be fun. I thought about doing this, and so let's go ahead and do it. And anyway, I have always thought that this was too real to be, just a concretion. I'll show you this. I wanted to show Angela, and I did. And but there is a backside to this. And so anyway, there's a row of teeth here. And if you look, there's a sharp pointed little tooth right there sticking out. And so to me, that lets me know that this is not just a concretion, but Angela says it is. And so did Sam Noble Dinosaur Museum, and so did the paleontologist at the university. But I'm hard-headed, and I think that this is, I've never seen a lot of concretions, and I've never seen one that looked like this. And with the jaw that falls all the way around, the right spot, the teeth, the symmetry of the head, the crinoids on the side where it laid down in a crinoid bed, during the Pennsylvanian. And anyway, crinoids were here since the middle of Cambrian times. So it could lay it down on a crinoid bed when it died. And then the thing got covered with a little bit of clay and stuff and that. But anyway, so this is Ozorchus primori repo, which is Arkansas's first crawler, I called it. And so anyway, I thought about cutting eye holes in the thing and making it look more realistic. So I'm going to let you guys decide, what do you think? Do you think this could be real, or do you think that this is a concretion? Okay, let's see a show of hands that thinks it's real. Okay, well, and then a show of hands that thinks it's a rock. But anyway, that's too realistic looking to me. So anyway, here's a notice that a letter that I wrote to Celita Suarez, the paleo person at the University of Arkansas, and told her I thought it was a reptile. And she says, "Thanks for sharing your pictures. It's certainly an interesting looking rock. It doesn't appear to be a cast of a skull. It appears to be a chert or a septarian nodular concretion." And anyway, the fact that there are crinoids on it tells me it's probably from the Boone Formation. And anyway, so she said it's thanks for sharing. Sorry, it's not a dinosaur. It's a pretty cool looking rock though. Celita. And so anyway, I don't think it's a dinosaur either. It's much older. I think it could be possibly a reptile. And so one of the first things that walked on Earth. And so anyway, I thought I'd bring that and share it with you. And anyway, hope you enjoyed it. So thank you all for coming. And I guess that's the end of the day of the podcast.